Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. This episode is part of our Indies Introduced series, where we spotlight debut authors handpicked by booksellers from around the country. In each episode, a bookseller from the Indies Introduced panel will interview the author of a debut title featured in our program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Preet Singh, and I work at Eagle Eye Bookshop in Decatur, Georgia, where I am events coordinator and a very serious romance reader and romance book pusher. It is my honor and pleasure today to talk with Danica Nava, who is the author of The Truth According to Ember, releasing August 6th, which is not too far in the future, about her debut novel, The Truth According to Ember. And here's a little bit about Danica. Danica Nava is an enrolled citizen of the Chickasaw Nation and works as an executive assistant in Silicon Valley. She graduated with an MBA from USC Marshall School of Business. When she's not chasing her one-year-old daughter around the house, she is dreaming up more silly, sexy stories. Hi, Danica. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. It was truly a pleasure to read The Truth According to Ember. I can tell you that I was so stoked, to use an older word, when the press release was released that your debut was coming out. There's not very, I don't feel like there's very many Indigenous stories that are out there that are written by Indigenous authors that feature Indigenous characters. They are there, but to have the first rom-com was truly something else. And I can tell you that myself and my fellow romance lovers, including booksellers and readers, have been very, very excited. So it's almost here. How are you feeling?
I am so nervous. It's a dream come true. And, publishing is so slow. So I wrote this years ago at this point, and now it's finally here and I'm working on the next book, So like even that bio, I was like, oh my gosh, my daughter was a year old when that bio went out to, the press release or whatever. She's 2.5 now. It's just wild. It's a wild journey, and I'm so happy.
Going back to The Truth According to Ember, this is a debut, and every time this book is mentioned, it's mentioned in the same breath that it's the first Indigenous rom-com. For those who don't know what that means, it means that the author, its own voices, the author is Indigenous, and both main characters are Indigenous as well. How do you feel about that? Because being the first, anything carries a lot of weight, because it's kind of like you'll have an asterisk by your name in the record books in the future. How does that make you feel, and how are you managing these huge expectations with being a first?
Well, as you say, expectations, I do feel pressure. I know for a fact, because since the book was announced and the cover reveal went mini viral, I've had so many Indigenous writers and readers enter my DMs and email me saying they're so excited to finish their story, that my success is giving them hope. And there's just a mounting pressure because I want to do well. I want to do it right. And no two Native Americans are going to have the same experience, because there's different tribes, different cultures, but then also no two individuals within the same tribe are going to have the same outlook and ideas. And so this is just one story told one way, and it's my way because of everything I've done in my life has shaped it. But what also is terrifying and keeps me up at night is that now there's going to be a sales figure, right? So publishers, when they're looking to acquire more of these books, they're going to see, well, how well did this one do? How much are we going to pay? And there's still that discrepancy between book advances for BIPOC authors to, white authors. And so I have to just let that go, because I have no control over that. I did the best I can do. I was writing the best book I could write. And really through word of mouth, booksellers, librarians getting early copies and being excited for it has really just given it this wonderful chance. And when you see Book Talk, and the books that go viral and they're selling millions of copies, Forbes just released that list, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming, because it's like, what's that movie, Dumb and Dumber, with Jim Carrey, so you're saying there's a chance with those bestseller lists, and it's looking more and more that there's the slimmest chance ever. But those bestseller lists, those monikers, while they are wonderful, it's really just making sure that the readers that need this book find it, and I do believe that they are. And I know that it might be the first rom-com, it's not the last. And I also want aspiring writers or current writers to not be afraid to write Indigenous characters. There are sensitivity readers, and doing it the right way. I think we've seen a lot of bodice rippers and things where were fetishized, and to move away from that. I do believe, especially in contemporary stories and romance, that the world should reflect the world we live in. And if you're writing a white romance and there's only white characters, that is intentional. And I don't read stories like that. I mean, that's all I had access to, but I want to see color. I want to see the vibrance of culture. And I really hope that having access to my book is like a gateway. Tommy Orange is a wonderful writer, and he's done, he's huge, but he's done interviews where he says, I'm not going to write a colorful tour into Indian country. And so it's not that I did a colorful tour and be like, here, white people, this is how we are. This is the reservation. I just wrote what I know, my lived experience. And I hope readers can see that. I wrote it in a way that's accessible for all, but there are jokes in there that, only the people in the community will understand. Like lingo, Skoden was in there, and I had the copy editor and the proofreader, and they kept flagging saying this needs to be added to the glossary because they thought, I do have Chikashinopa in there, which is Chickasaw language, and Chalagi, which is Cherokee language. And then there's Skoden. I'm like, well, it's colloquial. Like it's not an official language. They're like, world language should be added to glossary. And I'm like, no, stet. Like, I do believe people have the power to Google at this point. You have computers in your hand and your phones and reservation dogs and things like that. So yeah, I'm trying to just take everything a day at a time. And, sometimes the pressure does get to me and I have a little bit more ice cream before bed. It's already a long-winded answer. I'm a bit of a talker.
It's totally all right. Your answer is excellent. I was going to say, regardless of sale figures, which I know is important for publishing, and any other lists that are made or not made, honestly, when you have readers who find the book that they need, I'm going to get emotional. It's the stories that stay with you. So you will have those readers reaching out to you, letting you know. I've been in that place where a story, I feel, has left imprints on my soul. Those are the ones that stay. Those are the ones that I sell. I don't cry when I'm talking about them. But yes, that is validation that is not physical, but hopefully you will see that. And you are seeing that, I feel like.
You're making me emotional too.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's beautiful. Final copies have started going out to the Berkeley influencers. That's what they do now. And so I've been just tagged in a slew of photos of everyone opening their mail. I don't even have my final copies yet. I haven't even seen the full book yet. And just the joy of people with their book next to their faces. And it makes me cry because that is just the dream, right? That the story that was just mine for so long is now, it's not mine anymore. It's readers. And not only that, but people are just so excited. I think sometimes we hear there's bad actors on Twitter and threads, right? Like they get to say something really divisive. But I think as a whole, the reading community and the romance reading community is inclusive. Like everyone deserves that happily ever after. And that's why I wanted to write this book, was to have Native joy show us in the contemporary context and get to have that happily ever after be the heroes and not just the stoic Indian or the medicine woman, shaman, or the Native princess, or however we've been seen. Is we get to live our lives. And mine, it was mundane because I work in an office. And so that was just this story. But it's no less thrilling. Like I remember when I fell in love for the first time, it felt magical. I felt like the lead character of my own story because everyone is.
You mentioned how, like you mentioned Tommy Orange, and you mentioned wanting to change the narrative, like feature what you know. Were you influenced by Tommy Orange, or I guess like other Indigenous authors? And if you could recommend or influence us to read a book or multiple books, who would you recommend?
Yes, I feel like all writers, we're not writing in a vacuum. We're consuming media and then we write. And there are themes in Tommy Orange's There that do present themselves in my way, in my own silly way, because of my own experience with, addiction. Now, I'm not an addict, but, I had a father who was addicted to alcohol and pain medication, and just how it affects marginalized communities and, broken homes as well. And so while they're two completely different stories, there are thematic elements that are also present in my book. And then you have Louise Erdrich, who's amazing. When we were talking about blurbers, and I was like, well, there's Louise Erdrich. I was like, but she's like Pulitzer Prize. When I was like, I don't think she's going to want this silly book of mine. Like, because Tommy Orange and Louise Erdrich, they have the most beautiful prose, and I want to get there. But I'm just a different writer. I write this commercial fiction. It's women's fiction leaning because of the heavier themes, but it's also very silly. And I was like, I don't know if I can ask Louise to read the silliness that I have here. She never will take me seriously again. But I love them. And then Robin Covington, she writes genre romance. So she has Native American characters who are billionaires, and she's got a whole backlist of books. And then Vanessa Lilly, she's published Blood Sisters earlier this year. I love Vanessa Lilly. She's been so awesome because she's also at Berkeley. And so when I joined, I got to connect with her, and she's just been so awesome. Like, when any questions I have, because she's published books prior to that, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so she says awesome words of wisdom and advice, and also allowed to be silly. But yeah, there are Native authors and lots of them. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
Nope, you're totally all right. I mean, we did ask for recommendations, and honestly, when you're passionate about what you're reading, what you've loved, it really comes through. And so yes, that's definitely a great way to influence people to read something. Now, in romance, there's a huge trend of microtropes. Without any spoilers, what microtropes would you like potential readers to know about? And The Truth According to Ember, what might entice them to know more about it? And what are some of your favorite tropes?
Well, I love this. Thank you so much for asking me. I've been doing a lot of interviews where they only ask about Native identity. I'm like, it's romance. Can we talk about tropes? I don't know. Yes, I love tropes. So in The Truth According to Ember, the major, bigger tropes you'll find are like only one bed. I got to sneak it in there. Forbidden dating, false identities. And then micro tropes are exciting with Donawa's forearms when he's driving on the steering wheel. Love a forearm moment. When a male main character cooks, there's a lot of food in here. I think food is just, it's so integral. Sometimes I read books and I'm like, how can they never eat? Don't they get hungry? But so there's many scenes where they're cooking food and eating because that's community. And he cooks and she cooks. But I love when a man does it. My husband's a big cooker. So I was inspired there a little bit. He buys her Surtec when she needs it. And, he's just a caregiver. He takes care for his sister. And just the banter. They can just communicate with a single look. And I think, well, especially in my culture, Native culture, a lot of chin speaking, they'll tilt up the chin and we don't like to point with our fingers, so we'll point with our lips or our chin or our whole face. So trying to get that in print was difficult. So I hope I executed that well, but there's just a lot of that, facial communication. And I don't know if readers outside of the community will pick up on that, why they do that, but it's very cultural.
That is so cool. I mean, I know I didn't pick up on that, but I am from an Indian background, and yes, we also use a lot of gestures. I mean, I obviously talk with my hands, but also the head tilt, and then all sorts of things. Our faces are very expressive as well. So I found that I will go back and reread and definitely take note of that. So in The Truth According to Ember, while it is a rom-com, there are some very serious themes regarding identity and family that you've incorporated from both Ember's point of view and Danawa's. Did I say that correctly?
Danawa. He goes by Dan. People can't pronounce it.
No, I mean, if you don't ask, then you can't, right?
Yeah.
So from his perspective, like you mentioned, he's a caregiver. He takes care of his sister. Ember, has her aunt in her life and her brother. How important was it to you that you highlighted these issues regarding identity and family. And I really, really appreciate how you address them.
It's so interesting because I feel like themes present themselves after you've written the book. So I set out to write this story and I was like, she's going to be an accountant and it's going to be the IT guy because people are so mean. They mistreat the IT guys. They're the unsung heroes of corporate. And I just love the idea of like the IT guy being like the sexy romance hero instead of like the flashy executive. Also the power dynamics of like having someone a superior like that. That's its own thing. Like it's fine. But this just wasn't Ember's story. So as I wrote it, I'm a discovery writer. So I write with Save the Cat Beats. So I know like the skeleton outline of like, this is where it should happen. But as I'm writing, those things change as I get to know the characters better. And, or I realized like a scene where I had the set piece, like where they were location wise wasn't working. And, so she just kept getting these missed calls and she was just kept avoiding it. And I'm like, why is she avoiding these calls? And I was like, oh, it's because her brother needs more money on his commissary account. And she can't afford that. Or, you know, she's a little angry, you know, and let me explore that. And with Donovan, with his sister, I was like, this guy's a caregiver. And I think oftentimes in romance, you see both characters, you know, they have a lot to work through. And I just really wanted Ember to find someone who's well-adjusted because I think we don't see that in romance. And sometimes it's like until they meet the love interest, then they can finally address their issues and like be capable to have a loving relationship. But she needed somebody who was well-adjusted, who can help her out because she's got so much going on. If he had issues too, the book would never end. So it just worked out that way with just putting what I know and the layers there. And I didn't even realize I had these like mega themes. I thought I wrote this silly rom-com. And then as I was talking to editors and they were talking like, oh, the conversation on poverty. I was like, the what? I based her apartment on my first apartment. And I also like toned it down because I was like, okay, I can't sensationalize it with the cockroaches that I found, you know? So like I can't make it too over the top. No one would believe it, even though like I experienced that. Like finding like heroin used needles like in a cupboard and I was like, oh my god. So like I toned things down, but it's really just from like my lived experience and like I don't know, I just like came through it while writing and having empathy for the characters. I don't believe in judging your characters and how can you really like write lovingly in a place of love and maybe I could be a literary genius one day like Louise and Tommy if I understood thematic elements like from the get-go, but really it was just from writing and discovering and like she's shying away from things and just it's just the color of like making each character feel lived in. Like even Tito, who is her brother's best friend, he is even lovable and redeemable, even though she hates him. And so just to give every single character a reason to be there and like who are they and what makes them different, distinct from other characters. So this is told entirely in first person past tense. It's Ember's head. And you know, I truly believe that no character is a reliable narrator, especially if you're in somebody's first person point of view. And so all of her prejudices and the resentments are going to color how she thinks about these characters, but then through their dialogue and through their action, I think readers can pick up on something else. And so that to me is just so fun to write about relationships. And I have a screenwriting background in undergrad and at Second City and how to make things physical and lively on the page as you would see it in a movie or a TV show. Like Saturday Night Live, it was my dream to be on there. So like chapter 4 to me writes like a SNL skit with just the hilarious like one-upping with the bowling league and the little bighorns and just like adding layers to like every pass when you're editing. Like, oh, this could be funnier if I like play into this board. So that's a long-winded answer of like, I didn't know what I was doing with these themes.
But you know, honestly, you say that, and I feel that's even all the more impressive because you didn't plan it and it still came through. I honestly love rom-coms. There's nothing like laughing, but rom-coms that have heart and depth are actually my favorite because it's like you're expecting one thing and you get multiple things. It's like, you know, finding extra peanuts on your ice cream cone, you know, or there's a lot more extra chocolate at the bottom of the cone that like you weren't expecting. It just makes that experience all the more richer and enjoyable. So you might think that you need to practice to get to, you know, like the levels of Tommy Orange and Louise Erdrich when it comes to like planning like themes and stuff. I say you're already there. Like you are doing it instinctively, and that's a gift in itself. So
well, I do believe the subconscious helps, right? We consume media. I'm a voracious reader. I read a lot. I watch a lot of movies and TV shows. And so I do believe that in the back of your brain, like, cause I get, you know, writer's block or whatever, but while you're sleeping, you're working through those plot, you know, like the brain is just so full of wonder. So I guess maybe back here in the back of Danica's brain over here, she's working hard.
I mean, that's wonderful though, because that means that you wake up and you've got new ideas, and you know, you can work around those places where you're stuck. I wanted to comment on the shirt that you're wearing. It is like readers can't see it, but it says hashtag Native Daddy.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your shirt?
Yes, it comes from a joke that Joanna drunkenly tells Ember while she's getting ready, because Donna was in the house. They're going to go to a bar. He's helped her set up a printer. And Ember's like, I don't want to go. I have nothing to wear. And Joanna, she does the quintessential rom-com best friend pep talk. And she's like a little too loud because the walls are paper thin. And she's like, the native daddy of our dreams is out there. You're going to go. You're going to show up. And he did overhear that. And she gets teased about it throughout the book. And he is the native daddy of my girly fantasies for sure.
Oh my goodness. For those who haven't seen the cover is gorgeous. Both main characters look absolutely stunning. And yes, I love the braid. I love the way that they're staged on the cover. He is totally a native daddy. It's interesting because good guys, like he's a cinnamon roll, but also an alpha, which I guess is the best way to call him. He's such a good guy. Like, yeah, it's a good thing fictional characters aren't real, because he is truly the native dream daddy of, I feel like, all of our dreams.
You know, nice guys do exist, and I wanted to give nice guys, because I married a nice guy, the chance to shine. But then I did get some feedback early on with critique partners that he was like too perfect. So then like that's why in the intimate scenes it's spiced up a bit, you know, to give him some depth there. But Britt Newton, she is Muskogee Creek, and her tag on Instagram's Holoske. And I'm so lucky that I got to advocate. I said I really wanted an Indigenous artist for the cover, and Berkeley was like, yes, who? And she was available, and she's a stunning artist. And I just don't think the book would have blown up the way it did without this beautiful cover.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I've been reading for so long, like cover trends, like they miss me, because the cover is what the cover is, but the synopsis, if it's a great synopsis, you've got me hooked. But this generation of readers is definitely very visual, so it's a lot of great eye candy to match. The outside matches the inside, which is wonderful. What would you like readers to take away from reading The Truth According to Ember?
I really hope that readers of all stages of life will see Native characters and maybe think a little differently when asking or you know, looking at, well, readers or listeners can't see me right now, but I am very white presenting. I don't look how Hollywood says I should look as a Native woman. And so when people find out that I'm Chickasaw, I get asked, I wish I had $1 for every time I was asked, because then I'd be rich. But how much Indian blood are you?
No.
Do you get money for being Indian? Do you have to pay taxes? And it's just so strange, because no other culture are people asking these very invasive questions. And, you know, we're not a pedigree of horse or dog. We're, you know, the purest form. It's cultural. And to be a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation, it's not a racial distinction. It's actually a political distinction that I am a citizen of a dependent sovereign nation within the United States. And so when reading this book, I hope readers can pick up on that. Like, oh, wow, you know, maybe saying these things, like even on my current job, I work a day job, maybe say like, oh, we're getting too far off the reservation here, or that guy's the lowest man on the totem pole. And like, if that's your only exposure to Native culture like that we should think about that. We walk around everywhere, we live everywhere. There's quite a few who live abroad, hundreds of thousands of us in the Chickasaw Nation alone. And but also I hope they see that our joy, like we're still around. We've gone through some really horrific things with the Trail of Tears and being settled in Oklahoma, but like we're not defeated. We're how we describe ourselves in the tribe is say the Chickasaws are unconquered and unconquerable. And I hope that resilience comes through in the pages, like humor, like laughing through the hard times. It's what a lot of people do, not just in the Native culture. And also like, the sense of community. I think capitalism has sold us this lie that we have to have the title, the job title, the pay, the house, the car, keeping up with the Joneses, the next best thing. And really with the Native community, it is about community. It's how can we help each other? How can we grow? It's not how the tribe can take care of us. How can we take care of the tribe as a whole? And, Ember gets herself into trouble when she falls for that lie of I have to be better than I am when you're just as fine as you are. And I hope that readers can see that.
That's really beautifully said. I hope readers feel the same way. I know I felt that way when I finished reading. But thank you so much for your time today. I'm so sorry I cried all over the podcast.
No, I love it because what emotions, like we write for that, right? We write for those big feelings. Yeah. And I cried while writing this and laughed a lot though.
That's wonderful. Like I said before, I really feel like when you write with heart, it comes through and the readers feel it. Like when you are enjoying what you're writing, we are enjoying what you're reading. Like we are enjoying what we are reading. So any like final notes on actually, I'm always curious to know what authors are working on next.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. So my next book is another Native rom-com with Berkeley. And it's called Love is a War Song. And it's about a pop star who has to go back into hiding. She's canceled a little bit. She's got to go back to her reservation, her estranged grandmother's horse ranch, where she meets a rancher named Lucas. And they have to come to terms. And they have to make a truce to both get what they need. And there's a lot going on here. There's line dancing, lots of country music references. So if you love Oklahoma, you're going to see another side of it in Eastern Oklahoma. And I love this book so much. And Lucas is very different from Danica. I made sure to really make them distinctly different. So, but you're going to see the silly shenanigans and colorful cast of characters.
I love that. Thank you so much once again. This was a dream come true for me, at least. I look forward to the successes that The Truth According to Ember brings. And yes, I'm adding your second book to my TBR right now.
I don't think it's up, but
that's okay.
Let's make it up. Yeah.
I have a spreadsheet for 2025 releases that I started as soon as announcements started pouring out. So I'm going to put it somewhere in 2025 underneath my
July 2025.
All right. I'm putting it in there right now.
Ooh, ooh. Thank you so much, Preet. You were so wonderful. And thank you for everything.
You're welcome. Like I said before, it's truly my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!